that sometimes when new concepts are being given, sometimes when new thoughts are being presented, it can become difficult to ask questions, even things that we might want to learn, but don't necessarily know how to ask yet. And we kind of have to dig. But would like to see if we can do our best to really take some time and ask some questions and do some deep thinking while we're on. So just in case you
I have a
haven't noticed,
question.
I'm not.
I have a question.
Sure.
What kind of camera you got? Cuz you look amazing.
All right. I was just gonna say, as you can probably tell, it's not my normal camera setup and it's not my normal background. I am in Dallas, Texas. My wife and I are on a trip. Was initially going to be just for just to celebrate a friend of mine's birthday. His wife was throwing him a surprise party, and then it just turned into a whole little vacation. My wife and I both realized we haven't had a vacation by ourselves in 15 years. So we're going to take the time. We're going to go ahead and we're going to have it. But I'm not going to forsake my assignment in giving you the word of the Lord on Wednesdays, especially over this critical time. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and dive on in. So this particular we're in a series called the Crossing Over series, and the Crossing Over series is based in the book of Joshua. So for those of you that were not there on Sunday or had missed pieces of Sunday, we started off with the mentality. It was the Crossing Over series, part 1, the mentality, and it was Joshua really going through the process of mourning Moses and really taking on the mantle of Moses and having to lead an entire people into the promise that Moses couldn't do. Now, this is a much bigger deal than I think people normally really take stock in, because Joshua wasn't a young man at this time. He was a young man at some point during the reign of Moses, but by this time he's an old man. He's an older man. He is not a young man. He's not a middle-aged man. He's an older man who is taking up a mantle probably best suited for a young man. Yet still, God says, Joshua, I will be with you as I was with Moses. You will be my guy, essentially. And so the mentality of taking on this responsibility, as we believe the Lord is saying, now is the time to prepare, because 2022 is a year of birthing. It's a year of launching. It's a year where God has really been gestating things in us, and it is time to let them loose or set them forth. And so what's happening is there is a move or a push, much like a birth pang, and we have to be prepared for what it means to not only enter into the promise, but to keep what has been promised, to grow what has been promised. So that all takes a major shift in thought, one of which is when you get to the promised land, you're going to have to work. This is a worker's mentality. We have to be a lover that is in the mentality of working. Love Jesus. We're building what Jesus wants us to build, both personally, spiritually, and professionally. But what God is saying is it will require our hard work, our blood, sweat, and tears. This is not a time for partying. This is not a time to be wasting time. This is a time to not only plan to build, but to learn how to overtake. And that's what this whole series is about. And so as we learned, the first portion being the mentality, and getting the mentality of someone who's crossing over into the promised land. The second thing we're learning is the assessment process. This is rooted in Joshua chapter 2. And this is really important for us to understand. So, do you guys know why assessing what's in front of you is important? Anybody here? Oh, come on, entrepreneurs. I know you guys got why is assessing what you're about to take? Why does any business, before they overtake another business or they go look into a territory, assess the territory to see what's there? Why is the assessment important? Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and answer then. Assessing is extremely important for a number of reasons. It's the evaluation process, the estimation process of what is valuable and what is not valuable, that which is worthy of accruing into, we'll say, into the fold, and that which is not. So we need to understand that the assessment process is a critical process, and it's also really important to understand in the assessment process that which you're facing. So it's not only the evaluation or estimation of what you're going to accrue or what you're going to throw away, but it's the evaluation, the estimation of the enemy that's in front of you. And let's say it's not an enemy, but the opponent that's in front of you. You don't want to call it the enemy. So it's really important that the assessment happen. I think far too many Christians do not assess the battle. They do not assess they do not evaluate what's going on. And so what happens is they often lose before they ever step on the battlefield because they're discouraged. Like I said on Sunday, the secret and the critical part of being able to be an overcomer, to be a promised land taker, is that you need to know that you are the tool of God, that you are literally divinely placed by heaven to overtake and get what is yours. It belongs to you by royal decree of heaven. And so you have to really understand that you are a part of a divine process. And so you need to really grasp and grab hold of what it means to be a leader, or the very least following the leaders in the process of grabbing your promise that God has given over years or decades or maybe weeks and months, however long. The assessment is critical because you get to be able to manage your resources. Now, this is a process that there's no way we can go into it all on a Wednesday night Bible study. But what we can do is at least touch the surface of what the scripture is saying. And we're going to go ahead and start reading, starting off at the first verse. And Joshua the son of Nun sent 2 men secretly from Shittim as spies, saying, "Go view the land, especially Jericho." Now, there's a couple of things I want to take from this scripture. Joshua, being a wise leader, is telling 2 men to go make an assessment. He's saying, I want you to do an evaluation of the land, but I want you to specifically go look at Jericho. Why? Because Jericho was an important and strategic city for the children of Israel as they're crossing over into the promised land. And I want to ask you guys, as part of this Bible study and part of this study as a whole, as you're doing your assessment process, have you recognized the critical pieces, the strategic areas that you need to take hold of in 2022? For example, some of us might need some real help in logistics, might need real help in administration, might need real help in organization. So there's might be some critical pieces, your Jerichos, that you need to really assess and look at the obstacle that is in front of you and apply the right amount of resource to be able to go ahead and take that what's the best word? Be able to take that that Jericho and subdue it, and to be able to lay your eyes on the land and know what comes after the first fight. And so this is really important. This piece is the assessment process, is the strategic process by which all other decisions from here on out are going to happen. And so if you're taking notes, those of you online and watching on YouTube and Facebook, and those of you that are here in Zoom, I need you guys to not only realize that you need to assess the battlefield or assess your promised land, but also recognize your strategic areas where you need to grab hold of your Jerichos. Jericho wasn't just a city Joshua picked, it was a strategy point. It was critical. The second sentence in the scripture is another highly important point, something that I pointed out on Sunday, but something that I want to highlight again. And it says, and they went and came into the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab and lodged there. Now, this is really important for us to know. You never know who will be your friend in the new space. You need to be open. Now, why is this important? Because Rahab is in the line of Christ, a member of a royal family who did not know her worth, yet still understood, and we'll go later on down in the scripture, understood the critical role these two men were playing in the shifting of the territory. And so what she did was, the little influence that she had, she used to protect these two men. Because as we'll see in the next verse, the king of Jericho was looking for them because he heard that they entered the kingdom. And so this is really critical to understand, as you will never know who's going to be your true friend. We have to be open-minded. It doesn't, listen, I'm not saying this because I'm promoting some false sense of understanding that, you know, it can't always be a Christian. Listen, it's not always going to be a Christian who helps you, nor is it always going to be a Christian who recognizes the value that you bring. A lot of times it's going to be the world that sees the value that's on your life even before your own brethren do. And so we need to understand that the space for help needs to be an open space. Does that make sense, guys? Now, I'm not saying don't use wisdom. I'm not saying don't recognize red flags. And by the way, it's not like these two men stayed in Rahab's house and asked for wisdom from Rahab. They took what Rahab was there for and then they left. And so I'm saying this and that's another conversation, and knowing the timing of when to leave. But the point of this process, the point of what I'm saying, and really the linchpin of it all here, is that we need to be open-minded in understanding that people are going to come and recognize your value and your worth that you did not know even knew your name, because, hey, Rahab heard of them before they ever knew who Rahab was. And let me go ahead and continue with the next sentence. And it says, and it was told to the king of Jericho, behold, men of Israel have come here to search out the land. Then the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come to search out all the land. Now, I want to stop here because there is a king in a kingdom who already knew that the children of Israel, who have now a renown in the area because they've heard of the miracle signs and wonders that brought them into the promised land, into this area. Now everybody's beginning to shake because God is with them, and they don't really know what to do, whether to fight them or not. They're on the fence, and some are strictly against them, but some are really still on the fence, and the king of Jericho doesn't want them. Now, this is a really important lesson for us, as we're going to be taking pieces of property and land and whatever God has promised you. Someone's there already occupying the space. And so you need to know a couple of things. You will be talked about and you will be tracked. Hear me here. Drew, I'm going to call you out for a second. So be ready to be put on mic because this is important. When you do a good job, larger companies begin to know the name of your company, correct?
Absolutely.
So you know that when you're taking a piece of someone else's territory, you've outbid them, you've done the work, and you've done it better for cheaper. You know that the larger company is beginning to look at you and wondering who you are, correct?
Hold up. Who said cheaper?
Okay. Well, if not cheaper, same rate, even more expensive, yet still the work shows for itself.
Absolutely.
The larger entity is looking at your company saying, what do we make of them? Correct?
Correct.
Same things happening when it's on a large scale, not just a project by project scale. All of a sudden you're taking chunks of somebody's territory. They're tracking you. Would you agree? They're tracking your business and looking at what you do, correct?
Yes.
All
and
right.
I wish they would.
The point, thank you for confirming my point, Drew. I appreciate you coming on mic for that. Now,
Yes, sir.
The reason why I brought Drew on to make the point is because it's logical and it's business that, hey, he's taking a piece of someone else's, I mean, not legitimately taking a piece of someone else's business, larger corporations, and doing it better. And the larger business is going to realize a piece of my kingdom has been taken or is being threatened. And so what happens is Drew's company is being talked about. Same thing with an individual. When you're coming into something as the new guy who people have heard of because of the things that you have done and the things that you're about to do and want to do in the same space as them, you're going to be talked about and you're going to be tracked, and your job is not to be offended. And here's a key part: stay operational under pressure. Meaning not folding because it's difficult, but rather staying cool and calm and still being able to assess right and wrong in the midst of trouble. This is really important and very key, not just to business, but to life. And we see it in these two men who went to Rahab. Rahab hid them, and we're going to see this in the next sentence. Rahab hid them, put them up in the rafters with flax, and she covered them and said, hey, they left. They went out in the middle of the night, and go chase them. But this is a really important piece of understanding as we're making assessments and people are tracking us and we're looking at what we're going to be moving in wisdom in. We need to value the staying cool under pressure and operating in the knowledge of people are going to be tracking you and talking about you. Good, bad, or indifferent, they're going to be tracking you and talking about you. Some people are going to be tracking you and talking about you just like Rahab because they want to be a part of the squad that overtakes. Other people are going to be tracking and talking about you like King Jericho wanting to kill you because they don't want to be taken over. Does that make sense, guys? It's only going to be one of the two. Very few people are going to remain neutral. But listen, kings don't give up their thrones easily. Principalities and powers, natural kings and kingdoms, businesses or whatever, no one gives up their throne easily. They will do whatever they can to hold on their position. And this is really key here. This is really important because many kings, and this has been a strategy since eons past, will use their gift of charm and their language to try to win you over, even if it's just to snuff you out. Not by necessarily literally killing you, though in battle that would happen, but in in life normally in a modern day society that doesn't happen. But what they will do is snuff out your company, snuff out your progress, snuff out your energy by taking you along a road that you don't belong on. Now you got to realize this, because this is important. When kings talk to you, when you're trying to take over pieces of their territory or their whole thing because God has given it to you, you need to recognize that their tongue will be forked and their intentions are highly personal. This is not going to be a buddy-buddy conversation. It is a battle of wits. And so wisdom is key. Are you guys understanding what I'm saying? My Zoom family, I just want to know that you're hearing me and that I'm not moving too quickly. Have I been giving you solid? All right, solid. Okay, good. Glad to hear that. Because what happens in the assessment process is you begin to see who's friend and who's foe. Now, a lot of it has to do with your mere presence. Your presence is in the midst, and then all of a sudden you see who comes out of the woodwork. But listen, this is why it's important when people start coming out of the woodwork, you assess who's coming and who's going where. Don't panic, but rather look and assess and value who is doing what and where and when. And this is a critical piece of what is happening in the future. Does that make sense, guys? It's how you're going to value, how you're going to take over pieces and resources, how you're going to use resources to take over positions. Let me give you an example. Now, you might think this as mundane, but let's say you're a secretary or an executive assistant. Now, you would think your job is just taking notes and making schedules and writing things down and, formatting stuff and, okay. But you don't always want to stay an executive assistant, or you want to be the best executive assistant in the history of your company, that you would follow this CEO wherever this CEO would go. So the C-suite executive can always recognize and value, and listen, good executive assistants get paid six-figure incomes in billion-dollar corporations and multi-million-dollar corporations because they are essentially the right-hand man to the CEO in keeping things organized. And so how can someone such as an executive assistant or a secretary really use this or value this? Well, when you know that your organization or your people or you yourself are stepping into a new echelon of responsibility, what happens is all of a sudden people's opinions come to the surface about how you should handle the mountain of information coming your way. You need to value who is for you and who is against you. You need to value what kind of information is coming to you and really begin to use wisdom to break down what's in front of you. Now, that might sound simple, but it's actually a very hard process, and why executive assistants and really good secretaries get paid lots of money, because bosses don't want mundane nonsense. They don't want to see the stuff that could go down to lower level employees. They want to see the things that need to be seen right away so that they can make decisions right away. And they want to see things that they themselves only can handle. They don't want to see any other piece of business unless they ask for it. And that is the gatekeeper's responsibility, which is what the secretary and executive assistant is supposed to be. You literally hold the keys to winning and losing because you hold the keys to what the executives and the decision makers see and don't see. Huge responsibility. Yet I say, when wisdom is applied, you are a key tool in overtaking whatever land is in front of you. So as you apply this to your job, Drea, to your job, Sade, to your job, Drew, to your job, Vivian, and so on and so forth, as you apply this piece of wisdom in the assessment process of who is friend and foe, and what resources are coming to you and that are against you, and what resources you can see that are for you and are helpful, you need to be able to do so and operate under pressure. This is going to be a high pressure environment when you have, Drea, multiple orders and it's only you in the kitchen. How are you going to assess when you need to hire help and when you don't? What value are you going to put upon help and when it is that help needs to come? Sade, same thing. At some point, you're going to need to hire an apprentice to come in and take care of all of the glazing and the things that really you don't have to do outside of making what you make so that volume can go out, because you've seen an area, your Jericho, where you need to overtake strategically. Same thing with Drew. Drew knows, and Drew's been doing, but will happen on a larger scale. He needs to know when to pull the trigger on the right price points for the right projects. And so these things are all, and Vivian, I think I already described a little bit of what you do. And there's more to it than that, but still, kings are not going to give up their thrones easily. And as even someone in the position of my wife who deals with kings one-on-one cannot trust what they say, nor their intention, but rather needs to see beyond their words by the Spirit and hear what's actually happening in their heart and mind. That takes an attentive ear. Are we tracking, guys? Apostle, are we tracking?
Yes, sir.
Am I saying real things here?
I think you are.
Okay. How about you guys? You guys feeling that this is helpful for you? All right, I see that. Good, because this is really important. Now, the assessment process, remember, the assessment process is about valuing and devaluing. And so we need to understand that when we look at where we're headed, some things that we valued and thought were important, we're going to find out aren't actually that valuable. And so we need to be willing to not only value something correctly, but also devalue something correctly. And that's going to be very difficult for a lot of people, because sometimes it can be personal. Sometimes it's relational. Sometimes it's not just personal relationships, which is an obvious thing, but sometimes it's business relationships, where you can see that someone doesn't have the vision or the strength to really go with you. And it's not that they're bad, and it's not that they're inconvenient. It's that they're a weight that you cannot really hold on to in business. And you have to let them go so you can move forward swiftly. Now, is there a time when you're established that you can bring them in? Maybe. I can't. That would be an assessment process. But still, the point is, when you need to know what can be valuable and what is devalued in the sight and the scope of where you're headed. Does that make sense, guys? Because this is really important. Assessment is a critical piece. Because listen, we haven't even crossed over the Jordan. Everybody's still about to cross over. You are just there looking and spying right now. This is where we're at in the story. And this is actually really important. You haven't moved all of your assets. You haven't gravitated and actually crossed over and really moved every little piece of your assets over into where it needs to be. You haven't set up your army yet. You have not done all the critical things. You are assessing right now what should and should not happen. And this is really, really, really important. Too many people start fighting without assessing what the fight is even for, whether you should even be fighting that battle or not. And here's another thing, or if you are supposed to be fighting that battle, how you're supposed to win. We can't just randomly throw our resources and our time at things without looking and assessing strategically about how we're going to actually win. Does that make sense, guys? It's really important, because we waste too much time and resource just randomly throwing stuff at the wall, hoping stuff sticks. And then we wonder why the guy that we started with is way ahead of us. And we wonder how they got there. They didn't waste the time on battles they didn't even have to fight. Well, we're trying to fight every battle along the road. That's not how you win. But that's another conversation for another time. All right. So let's get on to the next one. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them, and she said, "True, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from. And then the gate was about to be closed at dark, and the men went out." She's talking about the 2 spies. She's lying for them. "And I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them." But she had brought them up from the roof and hid them in the stalk of flax that she had laid in order on the roof. So the men pursued after them on the way to the Jordan as far as the fords. And the gate was shut as soon as the pursuers had gone out. Now, this is critical for a couple of reasons, but looking at the time, the only thing that I would say is the most critical part of this that you need to know for right now is that when you are doing your assessment and things begin to look a little dangerous, know you're covered. That whether that God is using people, God is using strategy, and God is using resource to cover you and protect you as you are doing your assessment process. Now, if you don't think that assessing there's whole laws about corporate sabotage that is everything to do with assessment. The devaluing of companies and the increase of value of companies is literal espionage. So when I tell you this is really high level conversation and thinking, it is important that you value what I'm saying. Now, some people that are missing tonight are missing a huge piece of the process. They're not seeing or will be able to understand a lot of things that you will, because you'll understand that you're going to use the assessment process to really take hold of how to strategize and put together your battle plan. So listen, when things get tough, know you're covered. This is the most critical thing I can tell you guys. When things get tough, know you're covered. Because it will get tough. When you're assessing, it will get tough. So here we go. Next, before the men lay down, she came up to them on the roof and she said to them, "I know the Lord has given you the land, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction." So basically what she's saying is, man, I heard y'all was gangster. I heard how y'all roll. Y'all roll thick and y'all roll hard. She's saying you're about your business. And I want to be about that business. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that as I have dealt kindly with you, you also will deal kindly with me in my father's house, and given me a sure sign that you will save alive my father and mother, brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death. And the men said, our life for yours, even to death. If you don't tell this business of ours, then the Lord give us the land. We will deal kindly and faithfully with you. Now listen, this is something that you need to deal with carefully, something that you need to deal with and value. People are hungry for good and healthy leadership. When you are the new and upcoming kid, lack of better terminology, you're the force that everybody is recognizing the hand of the Lord is on you. Everybody's going to come out of the woodwork and say, "Hey, I see God is on you, and I'm hungry for what God is doing with you." People are going to want to gravitate towards you. Not everybody you need to grab, but you need to understand that you need to deal with this very gently, very kindly, and very strategically, because it's not only, this is wolf in sheep's clothing territory, where people will come with a separate vision and try to enter into your household and try to, from within, destroy the vision that God has given you by dividing your people. Because a group of people are hungry for good leadership. And listen, more and more, as we see bad leadership, as we see good leadership gone bad, as we see ineffective leadership, people are going to want to gravitate towards good shepherds, good leaders, of which you all are. And those of you watching online, I pray that you are as well. My point being is that this here is where wolves come in. This right here is how snakes get into the house. This is where you find wolves in the sheep pen. This is how the process comes, is that everybody, and listen, open doors, I get it. We all want to see who's going to come in. Bless them. But listen, this is a part of the assessment process. Take it from me, who made this mistake in not putting up a set of values and characteristics that are needed to be at a certain level of influence around you. Does that make sense, guys? You need to have a set of rules and boundaries. You need to have a set of understanding of what you need around you. And this is a part of the assessment process, so that when people come and people are flocking to you, they don't get past a certain point before they're recognized for who they are, bad, good, or indifferent. Does that make sense, y'all? I hope it makes sense to you. Y'all, can I get a thumbs up, hand clap, something? Let me know that you heard me, because this is critical. Good. Standards for who is around you will take you farther than you know. This is a part of the assessment process, guys. You need to assess your current staff, your current friends, your current whatever, and recognize your talent and who can go with you. And then those that are coming towards you because they see your leadership, you're going to need to assess and value where they are currently. Listen, I'm not saying there isn't an amazing leader amongst them. There is, I'm sure, and some of them just need a little development, but it isn't right now. You need to assess who's ready, who's not, who's faking it, and who's trying to take over your territory from within. This is really important. So make sure you have your values, make sure you have your characteristics and your criteria already set up before you start giving people positions. Now, this is hard, okay? It's going to be difficult because you're going to have a lot of tough conversations with people. But listen, the kind of people that value good leadership will value the tough conversation. All right. Then we're going to finish this out, and then I might have a couple of extra things to say. Then she let them down the rope through the window, for her house was built on the city wall. So she lived in the wall, and she said to them, "Go into the hills, or the pursuers will encounter you." So she gave them direction where to go, and hide there 3 days until the pursuers have returned. Then afterward you may go your way. The men said to her, "We will be guiltless with respect to the oath of ours we have made, and that you have made us swear. Behold," blah blah blah, talking about the oath that they gave. But then say, "But if you tell this business of ours, then we shall be guiltless with respect to your oath that you have made us swear." And she said, "According to your words, so be it." Then she went away, and they departed, and she tied a scarlet cord in the window. They departed and went into the hills and remained there 3 days until the pursuers returned. And the pursuers searched all along the way and found nothing. And then the two men returned. They came down from the hills and passed over and came to Joshua, the son of Nun. And they told him all the things that happened to them. And they said to Joshua, "Truly the Lord has given us all the land into our hands. Also all the inhabitants of the land melt away because of us." And so they give this report to their leader of everything that happened and give the assessment that it's good to go. God's given it to us, and even the people want us there. Now, there's a couple of really important things to pull from this, but specifically the sentence that says she tied the scarlet cord in the window. Listen, God's going to give you signs along the way. You have to trust them. You have to trust that God is in the midst of working with you and for you and on your behalf. You have to trust the signs that God gives you, that there are friends amongst you. There are friends amongst those that you're going to overtake. So listen, deal with everybody kindly, deal with everybody gently, but listen, you got to be fierce when you need to be fierce. That can be hard for people, but you have to do it. When it's time for war, it's time for war. And so part of overtaking and part of crossing over and part of obtaining what God has given is this assessment process. Assess well, guys. Take your time. Listen, you got another month before the new year begins. And usually January is the time when people are assembling their armies. They're not necessarily, rushing in with everything they have right in the beginning of the year, but the plans are beginning to be rolled out. Listen, we are putting together a battle plan book. I want you to contact Vivian. Vivian is putting together a battle plan that I gave her. She's formatting it and getting it together. And I'm going to be putting all of these notes that I have in every single one of the first 5 and the next 5 lessons that we're going to teach into a notebook for you so that you can not only have this for long term, but so that you can be able to have a repeat. You can repeat it and see your notes and grow from it and redo your battle plans every year. Hear me. Listen, they're a yearly. You can even do it quarterly or weekly if you want to, but you need to have a strategy and a battle plan for your year, your 5-year, and your 10-year process. Where do you want to be in 5 and 10 years is really an important question. But first, you got to recognize where you're at right now. Where are you right now? Sorry, I had to take a drink and take a Halls because my throat's starting to get a little dry. Talking for an hour. But where are you right now? Where do you want to be? We can make listen, we can have the best products on the planet, put together the best of everything. We can be really good at our jobs. But if we're not planning and strategizing on how to grow and move forward, we will continue to either stay in the same place or fail. Now, I say this from personal experience, not just biblical knowledge and not just not just from schooling, from just personal experience, not planning and not doing anything to move forward, but waiting upon others or waiting upon words or waiting upon whatever. When I tell you it's a waste of time, it's a waste of time. You go back around the mountain over and over, you stay in the wilderness instead of crossing over because you didn't do the work. And I say this because I've been in the wilderness for too long, and I have crossed over, and I am crossing over in some areas, and this is what is required. This is what is necessary. This is what it's important. And when we get into a little further into the storyline, and we get a little further into the what is going to be called the assembling, when we put together our armies, and what it really means is putting together our team for life. Listen, you need a team for life. You need your cheerleaders, but you also need those that are around you that are willing to tell you the truth. Guy, gal, check it out. You're wrong here. This is foul. You need a team, and you need to know what that team is, who that team is, and not only for your business, but your personal life and your spiritual life. You need it. You need the team. And so we'll get down to that process later, but begin to assess what's around you. Begin to assess what is valuable. Begin to assess what no longer holds value. Listen, I really thought that there were some things that I would always value my whole life. And it turned out, you know what? Those things weren't so important. I didn't really realize it till wisdom came to me. But still, once wisdom hit and I realized that some of the things I valued were pretty childish. They were pretty, childish. That's the best word to put it. They're pretty childish. They weren't meant for a grown man who's trying to grow his life. Guys, there are going to be some things that you value currently that should be devalued because they're not fit for a grown man or woman to really move forward and progress. And hey, some of it might be people that are holding you back. I don't know. Some things in business, some business relationships that you might have that you can't carry over because it's dead weight. They don't understand, can't really be a part of the process. They might be able to be helpful down the road, but of course you want to be kind in all your relationships. But when it comes to this, you've assessed that this relationship can't really move forward from here right now. You need to go ahead and cut it off in the way that's appropriate so that you can go ahead and move forward a lot more easily. There's so much to assess right now. There's so many things to really go down. Really take the time, guys. Write down what it is that you are holding valuable. What areas of your life are you trying to grow? Obviously, spiritually is always going to be one of them, but in your business life, in your personal life, what areas are you finding deficient, and where is it that you need to cut some things, and where is it that you need to value some things more? You know, one of the things that I value more in life now as I get older and as my parents get older is really spending time with family and how important it is to be around family, not just my friends, but who I deem is my family. And so it is something for you to really assess and take the time to do so, because it will guide you in your battle plan and in your strategy on how you release your assets and to where, your resources and to where. All right, guys. Well, that's my time for tonight. That went by really fast, actually. And I'm sad more people weren't able to come on and get some of this good information. But I would love if y'all could just tell me how you felt about what I gave. I know it was a lot of information, but I'd love to hear from anybody here what you felt about what you received. Anybody willing to talk? My wife said to give
It's
it
definitely helpful for just more equipping of how you started out on Sunday, and then to kind of transition and maneuver into this and give us more tools.
Oh, good. So you found it helpful?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, good. I'm glad. How about you, Drea?
Drew took the words right out of my mouth. Just the word equipped, and yeah, it's clearer. And also, like you're saying, being able to assess things, and to apply the wisdom in that. Yeah.
Amen. Now, guys, remember, assessing is not the battle. Okay, assessment is just it's an evaluation. So just remember that this is an evaluation process. You're assessing what is good, bad, ugly, assessing what needs to change, be moved. Assessing is the wisdom process. The battle plan is something different, but you just have to, the assessment process, this is an evaluation process. So just remember that. Don't think that this is the battle. This is not the battle. This is not even, y'all haven't even really the whole squad hasn't stepped into the land yet. This is just us bringing to the forefront an evaluation of what's ahead of us, and so that we can properly plan what we need to do to take over our Jerichos and to take over our land. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, it's
Yes,
important that we know that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's important that we know that, because sometimes we think assessing, it means I got to fight. It's like, no, assessing is an evaluation. It's largely a thinking process and a praying process, right? Just praying through what it is that you need to do, and really thinking through the stuff that you need to find out about. And God will show you what it is you need to do. It's really a great way for you to be able to plan how to allocate resources when the time comes to actually set foot in the land and fight. So remember, evaluation, assessment, of what is valued and what is going to be devalued in the soon coming future. All right, guys, bless you. If you feel that this is something that your folks should know about, I'd like for you to go ahead and say, hey, y'all, you missed it. Go ahead and watch it on YouTube. It really was helpful and valuable for me. I think it'll be helpful and valuable for you. That'd be greatly appreciated. I know that people do have a tendency to watch after Wednesdays, but I need people to start coming during the Wednesday process, because we're going to be doing this obviously now for the next 3 weeks, as we've done the first 2. And then after that, if people are still hungry for it, I have another 5 after this first 5 that is actually going to be far more valuable in many ways and give you ton more wisdom. It will be our master class in the Promised Land series, but I'm only going to give it to those that are really hungry for it, because what I don't want to do is give information and then again, this is all about allocating resource, which is my time and energy, and really the word of the Lord is always supposed to be given to those that will receive it, right? This is what a Bible study's for. And listen, this is a part of the training. So if you're really hungry for it, you really want it, I will give a masterclass for the next 5 that will be, it starts off with the victory, and the next one is the defeat. What happens when you win and what happens when you lose, and how to handle both. And it's really important to know how to handle. We always think we need to know how to handle when we lose. It's actually the easier one. How you handle victory is the much harder one. And so there's lots of things to learn in all of this, including as you are transitioning. And this is the piece that's really important. As you are transitioning into your senior years, how you're going to give over what you have worked for. That has to be a part of the plan. If it's not, then what are you doing it for in the first place? So it can't just be for a living. This is about promise. This is about purpose. This is about destiny. Promised land is destiny land. It's destiny conversation. It's purposed conversation. It's what it's not is how I'm going to get my next check. That is not what we're referencing. We're referencing larger picture here. We're referencing bigger deals, and we're talking about kingdom things. But come on, Apostle, the kingdom of the Lord is not in word, but in what? Power. And so if we're going to have power moves and we're going to move in power ways, we can't be thinking paychecks. We got to be thinking destinies. And so paychecks will come when you're walking in your destiny, walking in your purpose. But if you keep thinking as if this is a paycheck thing, if it's just business, then you're missing the point. It is business, but it's the Father's business. And it's his kingdom building. This isn't just building up you. We're not building up your kingdom. We're building up the kingdom of God. Like all of this is for the purpose and the glory of the great King. Part of your assessment and part of your evaluation should be how much of my life is really given towards the kingdom and its ways and submission to the King in his ways. Because if you're going to do this for you and you alone, then you're doing it for your own kingdom and your own worth and your own value. And though God will cover you, there will be difficulties ahead that others will not have, because he will have to humble you in ways that I pray you do not have to go down. I mean, and that's all in the teachings too that we'll come to down the road. But so please value this, run after it. I'm going to go ahead and sign off the live stream. Pray blessings over the live stream family. Thank you. Email us if you want to come to our services. We have mask on services now, so that for those that have immune deficiencies, and for those that are with others with immune deficiencies, and obviously those that just want to be safe. During the service, we do wear masks. And then after the service, it is mask optional. So just want to give you a heads up, and we would love to have you. Please email us at Firehouse. Just go to firehousecommunity.org and you can go ahead and click on the email, and you can go ahead and email us anything you